Okay, so I want to talk about something that's going to be pretty complicated for me to remember all of, but I'm going to do my best. A lot of you guys haven't really seen me for a while. I've been basically a recluse. I haven't been going to the board meetings or speaking. I've shown up twice, but not to speak, just to sort of let the other side know that I'm still here and paying attention. I want to talk about why that is, why I've been not so public, why I have so many unread messages and just sort of been inward, for a while. So, you guys all remember seeing the video of Rich Gallardo pepper spraying me, right? So, that situation, like I said, is on video. And after that happened, there was a restraining order filed against Rich Gallardo because that absolutely makes sense. That makes sense when you are someone who has been trying to ruin someone's life for like 4 years. Again, by the way, Rich Gallardo is the one who put up all those shitty posters on the walls of the board chambers about me in 2021, I think that was. So this guy's just been screwing with my life for years. So that incident happened at the tail end of me accepting to serve Rich Gallardo a restraining order on behalf of Stephen King. You guys remember the video of Rich Gallardo showing up to Stephen King's house in the middle of the night, threatening him, saying the citizens are gonna come back. He says that on the video, even though his dumbass said that was AI. Nope, that was real. Rich Gallardo really did that. He has an MO of showing up to people's houses just to screw with them for whatever reason. Stephen King filed a restraining order for him, which makes sense. I'm not friends with Stephen King. I just want to get that out of the way. At that point, anybody on this planet could have asked me to serve Rich Gallardo a restraining order, and I would have done so, because I just absolutely can't stand that guy. And I believe that at some point in his life, he should face consequences for all the terrible things he's been doing in this county. And so I was like, if I can help be an instrument to this guy actually getting consequences for being a piece of shit, sure. I finally get to serve Rich Gallardo at the elections office because he was on the live stream of the elections office. And on that live stream, you'll notice that he's got a big lump under his shirt. We'll just come back to that. But so I serve him. I just happened to still be downtown. I was at another location, a normal location that I normally go to. And about an hour after I served him, he and I had a verbal altercation on Market Street. Completely verbal. We just talked shit to each other. That's all on video too. He talked shit to me, I talked shit to him. I didn't make any threats to him, he didn't make any threats to me. And then comes the point where he's photographing the back of the vehicle, photographing the license plate. And that's when I stop and I get out and I start recording him because I wanted evidence of him trying to gather personal information about me because he's the type to show up at someone's home. So I'm not going to get into that whole situation. What happened, though, because of that was the timing where he left the elections office to when that pepper spray incident happened. That was maybe like 5 minutes or less. And so when the cops showed up after the pepper spray incident, they confiscated a gun from him. I don't care what anybody says or disbelieves about that. It's absolutely true. It's in the police report. It's on their body cam footage because both the officers were wearing body cams. I literally watched the male officer take a black firearm, a black handgun, off of Rich Gallardo and then unload it and put it in the back of his cruiser. I saw that. I saw that. It's don't try to gaslight me. So back to the restraining order. After he pepper sprays me, restraining order's filed. Like I said, makes total sense because he attacked me. It's granted. He is immediately served. Like the very next day after it was granted, Rich Gallardo was served again on video because I always record everything. And so in response to the valid restraining order that was granted against Rich Gallardo, he filed a restraining order against me. Yeah. And I could see that because that seems like something that he would do. The exact same way that Lori Bridgeford filed a restraining order against me because she doesn't like the things I say at the board meetings. That one, however, was denied. There was nothing granted about that. The judge that handled that one obviously saw that it was full of crap and denied it. And so Rich Gallardo files a restraining order against me. And these are the magic words. And I'm going to say this, and I'm only saying this because I want it to change, not because I want people to start doing it. But you know what? It's still the truth, and whatever comes out of this, it's still the truth. The magic words to getting a restraining order granted are stalking. That's what Rich Gallardo said that I was doing to him when he filed his bullshit restraining order out of retaliation. And his description of the stalking, he completely lied to the court. He lied his ass off to the court. He said that the stalking was from me trying to serve him the restraining order, even though he didn't mention any of that in his reasoning. He wrote something along the lines of, I showed up to his estranged wife's home, as if I did that for no reason. But he knew the reason, but he didn't tell the court that, so lying by omission. Now, just to nip in the bud, a question that I know some people are already thinking in their minds at this point in the video. Well, if you just accepted service, Nathan, you could have argued all of this in court. That makes sense, right? But here's the thing. There's still a time period between when I do accept service, have to turn my firearms in, and the actual court date. So if I'd accepted that paperwork, I would have had to turn my guns in. And then there would have been a 2-week time period where all of these motherfuckers know that I'm not armed. That's too long. I could not do that. I was not willing to accept that service, which I knew was bullshit in the first place, and have to give up my firearms and give these morons a 2-week window to come do something about it. And also, Rich Gallardo also made it very fucking clear that they just wanted to get me on the stand to do the exact same thing that Joseph Tully did and his set of lawyers during the Zapata hearing, when they kept me on the stand for 8.5 fucking hours and asked me a bunch of bullshit questions that had nothing to do with the actual incident, but were only asked for the sole reason of damaging my character. That's all Rich Gallardo and all his friends wanted to do. They wanted to come be character witnesses so they could get up on a stand and talk shit about me. That's it. And so fuck that, right? Fuck that. That's why I didn't just accept service and go explain myself in court. Because fuck that. I'm not doing that again. Ever again. I went to 2 locations to try to serve Rich Gallardo the restraining order on behalf of Stephen King. I went to a place off Butte Street, and at both places I did the same thing. I set the envelope on the ground, and then I knocked, and then I went far away and waited for someone to come out so that I could then just say, there's an envelope on the ground, you've been served, while I'm recording all of this, because I didn't want some interaction. I wasn't there to be a threat or a menace, just trying to be a paid process server, just trying to give someone an envelope. And so the first place on Butte Street, some other person came out and said that no one by that name lives there, and I was like, oh, okay, well then never mind, it's not you. And he gave me the envelope back, and it was fine. I went on my merry way. And then I went to the other place that was a suspected address of where Rich Gallardo might live, and I did the exact same thing. It was in Churn Creek Bottom. There was a house there. I didn't see any vehicles, but I did the exact same thing. I went up, I set the envelope on the ground, I knocked, and then I ran back around to the other side of my car and waited for someone to come out. No one came out, but I just waited for maybe, I don't know, a couple minutes. No one came out. So I went back up, grabbed the envelope, got in my car, and left. Never returned. Never returned. The only other places I tried to serve Rich Gallardo were at known public places, like places where he was known to show up, like board meetings and school board meetings, just like local political events that he would normally be at, but he wasn't at any of them. So I was finally able to serve him that day at the elections office. Come to find out, and this is again why I'm not friends with Stephen King, Stephen King had already filed a request to terminate that restraining order like a week before that, maybe a little longer, but he never told me. He never told me. Stephen King never told me that. And so, because I thought I was still trying to serve Rich Gallardo, I was still trying. And so I show up to the final court date to try to explain that, hey, I tried to serve him, but then the judge says that, oh, Stephen King already put in a request to terminate this due to not being able to serve Gallardo. And I'm like, well, shit, if he'd have told me that, I would have never got pepper sprayed, and I would have stopped trying to serve Rich Gallardo entirely. But he didn't tell me. For some fucking reason, Stephen goddamn King didn't tell me that. And so that whole pepper spray thing happened. So, back to Rich Gallardo's restraining order against me. And this is this is what the most upsetting thing is, because this is why I've been staying away from the public, sort of being a recluse, because what it did is it set a precedent, because this Shasta County judge, for some reason, looked at this restraining order that Rich Gallardo had submitted and believed it. Actually believed it somehow and signed it and granted it. And so what that means is that if I'm able to now be served, I have to give up my firearms, because that's how restraining orders work in the state of California. And it's hard for me to believe that even judges in Shasta County, don't look at their phones while they're taking a shit, don't read the news, don't know what's going on, have no clue whatsoever somehow that these people have been trying to get me for years, sending me death threats, documented death threats. I'm just like, how could a judge not know what they're doing by just signing a piece of paper that essentially disarms me if it can be served? And with all these threats, I fully believe that there are people in this town that if they knew I was disarmed, that I was not allowed to have firearms, they would try to come do something about it. And so it's frustrating to me that this is the way that these Shasta County judges are handling restraining orders, because restraining orders are more powerful than people think. You essentially lose your Second Amendment. And so some people deserve that. For example, Rich Gallardo, for randomly pepper spraying someone without actual provocation for carrying a firearm in the elections office, he deserved a restraining order, because he broke laws to deserve a restraining order and not be able to walk around carrying firearms because he's a goddamn danger. But I did not deserve that restraining order being granted in any way whatsoever. And the precedent that sets is that somehow anyone can just lie on a piece of paper, submit it to the court, and the court will grant their Second Amendment being taken away. How is that right? How on earth is that right? If you deserve a restraining order, you've done something to deserve it, and the person that's filing it can prove why you deserve that restraining order. Rich Gallardo didn't have to prove anything. This dude's a known liar. A famous liar in Shasta County. And so it's so hard for me to believe that whatever judge signed that just was completely clueless about who Rich Gallardo is. I don't know what could have been going through their mind. Maybe they were like, well, maybe it's just better if they both have one against each other, so there's no... But no, that's not fair. I didn't do anything to deserve one. And there's this whole group of people that want to come fucking kill me if they know I'm not armed. So it's not just I'm just gonna do it both to be fair type of thing. No, it's not fair. It's not fair. So that's the frustrating thing I've been dealing with, and I'm even nervous posting this video, because now I think that I've said this, more people are just going to file restraining orders against me, and that may be the case. But what I'm also hoping is that the legal community and the judges around here will also see this too, and maybe tighten up their screening process for things like restraining orders, especially when they're between two political opponents. Require proof. Deny it and then maybe respond with, I'm going to require some proof of this before I just sign a paper to take away someone's Second Amendment that could then easily be attacked by the people filing this restraining order. It's a shitty loophole, and I really don't think these Shasta County judges should be allowing shit like this, because it's dangerous. It's dangerous. It's dangerous to just grant a restraining order for no reason, because the person that it's against, if they've done nothing wrong, they could then be in danger, all because you didn't require proof. So, that's what I have to say about that. The other thing I want to talk about, this is how irrational Rich Gallardo is. So for that restraining order hearing, the judge that granted his bullshit restraining order, his restraining order full of lies, with no proof, Rich Gallardo asked for that judge to be taken off the case, to get a new judge, because he thinks that judge is too liberal or something. That's how irrational Rich Gallardo is. The judge that gave him what he wanted, he still asked for a new judge. Rich Gallardo just lives to be an oppositionalist, a contrarian. He just wants to fight anything and everything. No matter what, no matter if he has no good reason, he just wants to be seen as the guy going after shit. And it sucks that some judge in Shasta County enabled his fucking delusional bullshit, because that type of shit emboldens these people to do more stupid shit like that. So, again, I really hope the legal community at least passes this information around, because it's just not okay. It's just not okay to just be signing restraining orders willy-nilly without any sort of proof. If I actually did something to deserve a restraining order and they could prove it, I wouldn't be making this video. But I sure as hell didn't. I sure as hell didn't. And yet, Shasta County judge signed a piece of paper that could have had my Second Amendment taken away. And the reason that I want to talk to everyone about this is because if they could do this shit to me, guess what?